There are different kinds of working, but in all of them and in everyone, it is the same God at work. Now to each one, the manifestation of the Spirit is given for the common good. To one there is given through the Spirit a message of wisdom, to another a message of knowledge by means of the same Spirit. To another faith by the same Spirit, to another gifts of healing by that one Spirit, to another miraculous powers, to another prophecy, to another distinguishing between spirits, to another speaking in different kinds of tongues, and to still another the interpretation of tongues. All these are the work of one and the same Spirit, and he distributes them to each one just as he determines.
Thank you. I'm going to read that again in the Message version. Okay. God's various gifts are handed out everywhere, but they all originate in God's Spirit. God's various ministries are carried out everywhere, but they all originate in God's Spirit. God's various expressions of power are in action everywhere, but God himself is behind it all. Each person is given something to do that shows who God is. Everyone gets in on it. Everyone benefits. All kinds of things are handed out by the Spirit and to all kinds of people. The variety is wonderful: wise counsel, clear understanding, simple trust, healing the sick, miraculous acts, proclamation, distinguishing between spirits, tongues, interpretation of tongues. All these gifts have a common origin, but are handed out one by one by the one Spirit of God. He decides who gets what and when. Let's pray. God, we thank you. We thank you for your gifts. We thank you for right now stirring up the gifts in each and every woman that is in this place. The gifts that they know and the gifts that they don't. Right now, God, I ask that you reveal not just the gifts, but reveal the things that they need to hear and see and feel to push them into their next round. Speak to me and through me right now, God. I am yours. Use me as you see fit. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So, one definition for gift in the dictionary is something bestowed or acquired without any particular effort by the recipient or without it even being created. So we can get something without any effort, right? We know that there's natural gifts. We know that there's spiritually imparted gifts. And then we know that there's gifts of ministry. And we know that these gifts were given to us even before we were thought of. God said that when we were created in our mother's wombs, he knew us. So that means he knew what was in us. He knew what we were going to become. He knew what we could become, right? So we know that in order for these gifts to manifest in the world, we have to be born naturally. We have to be here. But then there's another birth. There's a spiritual birth, right? And what I've learned is that we can be birthed to different levels and different dimensions spiritually, and sometimes we need some assistance with that, right? So I have a natural mother, but I have a spiritual mother. I have a spiritual grandmother. I have spiritual mentors that have birthed me to new levels. And if it wasn't for their birthing, then some of the knowledge I have, some of the things that were inside of me, some of the goals and dreams and aspirations I have would not come into fruition. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is of Mary, mother of Jesus, and Elizabeth, mother of John the Baptist. Mary was pregnant with Jesus. Elizabeth was pregnant with John the Baptist. And John the Baptist was said to be dead, not moving, stillborn in her belly. She went to speak to Mary, and when Mary spoke to her, the scripture says the baby leaped. So that's pretty amazing, right? So when you think about the fact that she woke something up inside of Elizabeth, right? Not only did she wake something up inside of Elizabeth, but what was inside of Mary? Jesus was inside of Mary. The Word, the living Word, was inside of Mary, and she woke up what was inside of Elizabeth. That, to me, is what is representative of being spiritually birthed, right? It's the perfect story to explain that. So the shirt that I'm wearing, you see all these women that are on the shirt, the back of it says squad goals.
Yeah. Don't you want one?
Herstorylives.com, you can get them there. This shirt, the fact that I'm standing in front of you, all of that is representative of me being birthed, of me receiving new knowledge because I had someone that was wise enough to instill it in me. Someone that could show me that there were ways that I didn't know existed in ministry and life. Right? So I want to switch gears a little bit. I want to talk to you about knowledge, power, and weaponry. Who believes that knowledge is power? Okay. So if you believe that knowledge is power, if I have the knowledge and then you don't, what does that mean? I have the power and you don't, right? Would you say that the Bible is a book that God has given us that can give us knowledge? Yes. Right? So then therefore it can give us what? Power. But if I am the only one that is able to read the Bible, if it's only accessible to me, what does that mean? With power, right? Okay. So weaponry. What were weapons originally created to do? Someone answer that for me? War? Anything else? To destroy? Defense. To protect. Okay. So weapons can do all of these things. What else can they do? They can be used for good, but they can be used for bad, right? Okay. So we know, biblically, that the Bible is our weapon. Right? So if the Bible is our weapon, then what does that mean? It can be used for what? And? Okay. So let's say I'm learning to use a gun, right? How about I follow a police officer every day? I'm with this police officer and I'm just watching him with this gun. And then I decide I've watched him enough, now I can use it. I might get some of it, right? But if I did not learn it for myself, I could cause some trouble. So while it was beneficial for me to follow him,
come on, baby,
and to pay attention and to watch him, if I didn't learn it on my own, I could cause some trouble. Is that not what we do in church sometimes? Don't we do that with pastors sometimes? We rely on their understanding, but we don't get our own understanding. And then when we try to use it or regurgitate it, it don't come out how it was supposed to. Because we didn't learn it on our own, right? My father is a retired police officer. He was actually the first African-American captain for the state of Illinois Police. He was very well trained, okay? However, one day he was walking the dog, had his gun on his hip. The dog jumped up. He shot himself in his finger. This was before I was born. His finger is permanently like this because he shot himself. He was trained. He knew what he was doing. But things can happen. Accidents can happen. And so sometimes we get so wrapped up into messages and we hold pastors to these standards and we forget that they're human and they can make a mistake, even when it comes to scripture. Sometimes we sit in churches and we go through what I would like to call spiritual abuse. That's real. Because people spew things from the pulpit and they hurt like daggers. But we forget that they're human too. And their understanding doesn't necessarily have to be your understanding. It could be a foundation for it. But if you don't figure it out on your own, destruction. Right? So, what I want you to do right now is I want you to look to your right. And I want you to tell the woman to your right, if you don't have one to your right, do it to your left. I want you to say, Sister Soldier. Sister Soldier. Then on the other side, I want you to say, ready for war. Ready for war. That's what I want to talk about today. Sister Soldier, ready for war. Okay. So we've talked about how the word is a weapon. Knowledge, power, it can be used for good and bad. Something something that I believe, especially as women, is if we don't study to show ourselves approved, then we could be in a place where our spiritual gifts are inside of us and never used. Right? Because let's talk about the traditional church, what I grew up in. I didn't have any women that were leaders. I was told that they weren't supposed to be leaders. I was told that it didn't exist, that women shouldn't speak in church. I was told all of these things. And as a kid, you don't argue with that. That's not something you argue with. You just believe it. But if I didn't study to show myself approved, I would have continued to believe that, right? So I'm not saying that every person doesn't need to study, but I think as women, we really need to study. We really need to figure out what God was really saying to us. I think some of the hesitation for us to walk in our destiny and in our gifts is because we've been through spiritual abuse. It's because we have a lack of understanding. Or it's because there's a lack of true knowledge of biblical representation. What do I mean by that? Has anyone seen Hidden Figures? Yes. Okay. Hidden Figures was created because there were women that were working in NASA that were hidden, that we literally never heard of. And it was time that their story was revealed to us. By doing that, you now have little girls that are looking at these women and saying, I could do that. I want to do that. But biblically, if we don't unravel some of the hidden figures in the Bible, so there's some of us in here that are Marys and Sarahs and Phoebes and Priscillas and Deborahs. But if we don't learn about them, then we don't know what we can do, right? I need to be able to see myself in there. Paul is great. Peter is wonderful. John is amazing. I want to hear about them too. They can teach us something. But what about somebody that looks like me, who moves like me? I need to hear from them so that I know that these things that I'm feeling on the inside, these gifts that God has told me that I have, that they're real, that they've been done before, that they've been lived, that they've been approved, right? So let's talk about some of the things that we might have been taught. Women shouldn't speak in church. Who's heard that? Okay. Were you taught that? Some of you were taught that? Okay. That comes from Paul's letters to the church of Corinth. Okay? In these letters, first of all, they were written in Greek. People have translated them from English and back to Greek, and they've been completely different. The meanings are completely different. Some say that when Paul wrote the letters, the things that he said in Greek, it was almost as if he was deliberately saying certain things and using certain words to avoid some of the things that we now read in English. To be actually quite the contrary to what we've been told. But we've translated it into English and it's stuck with it. There's all kinds of things biblically that have been translated, obviously the whole Bible has been translated to English, that we have done research on. But for some reason, that one part, some people just want to stick to. We don't want to translate that. We don't want to know what that really meant. Do you know that in those same letters, Paul discusses slavery? How many of us believe that we should be slaves? As a society, the majority of us believe that we shouldn't be. The whole church stood up. We were the forefront for abolition. So in those same letters, we were told that we shouldn't speak. But we're going to hold that to be true? That doesn't sound right to me. Those letters, in those letters, Paul mentions a woman named Phoebe. She's one of my favorite characters in the Bible. A lot of people don't know she exists. In some of those letters, he says that she is his sister. Whoever had the NIV version, can you go to Romans 16, verse 1 for me? Romans 16, 1 and 2, actually. Go ahead.
I commend to you our sister Phoebe, a deacon of the church in Caesarea, I ask you to receive her in the Lord in a way worthy of his people, and to give her any help she may need from you, for she has been the benefactor of many people, including me.
Okay. So that is Paul talking about a woman.
Right, that's right.
Some believe that Phoebe is actually who delivered the letters, which would make Phoebe a missionary.
That's right.
But yet people still use the letters to impress us. Something odd about that, right? Something else about those letters. He was talking to a specific church at a specific time about a specific thing. And we took that specific thing and applied it to everything.
That's right.
It's very similar. I heard a quote that said, sometimes when we read scripture, we take verses and we look at them like one tree in a big forest. And if we're not careful, we'll select that one tree and forget the rest of the forest. But you got to see the rest of the forest.
That's right.
So that's what's happened in these letters. Something else. Who in here has a spouse that is in ministry, pastor, minister, any of that, anyone? Or maybe widow? Okay. Something that we're not often taught is about men and women being in ministry together. And by that, I don't mean the man is in ministry and the woman is a support system. If that's what it is, that's fine. I'm not knocking that. But there are some people that are both called.
Yeah, that's right.
And we don't talk about that. There's biblical representation for that. Priscilla and Aquila. Let's go back to Romans where we just read about Phoebe. Go back to Romans 16, now read verses 3 through 5.
Greet Priscilla and Aquila, my co-workers in Christ Jesus. They risked their lives for me. Not only I, but all the churches of the Gentiles are grateful to them. Greet also the church that meets at their house. Greet my dear friend Epinetus, who was the first convert to Christ in the province of Asia.
No, that's good. So Priscilla and Aquila. Paul, again, mentions a woman with her husband who had a church in their home. So they were ministers together. They were pastors together. Something else to be noted. Priscilla and Aquila were mentioned in the Bible 6 times. Of those 6 times, 3 times they're mentioned as Priscilla and Aquila. 3 times they're mentioned as Aquila and Priscilla. A lot of times, especially in the Old Testament, you'll find that the person of dominance always leads in the sentence. They're always first. And it was very rare, actually, you probably can't even find it in the Old Testament, where a woman was mentioned before a man.
That's right.
But here, they're mentioned equally.
That's right.
6 different times, 3 and 3. They were said to have been tent makers. A lot of people think that that means that they pitched tents outside. No. Tents were actually headdresses
That's right.
used religiously. So then now we have a woman that was possibly a missionary, but was mentioned in Paul's letters positively and recommended to Roman Christians. And we have a man and woman who were married and had ministry together equally. Okay. Mary Magdalene. What do you know about Mary Magdalene? Tell me a few things you know. So happy you said that. So happy you said that. There is no scriptural proof that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute. None. It's never mentioned. Ever. So why does everyone think that Mary Magdalene was a prostitute? Because that's what we were taught. Knowledge is power. It can be used against you. Mary Magdalene was possessed. That is mentioned. It said that she was possessed by the highest level of demons. And so it would be kind of comparable to you seeing a woman on the street just mad, just talking to herself, crazy. That was what Mary Magdalene was dealing with. Jesus exorcised her of her demons, and she went on to travel with him. He never spoke negatively about her. And Mary Magdalene was the first person that saw Jesus when he rose. And then she went to tell the disciples. He could have came to Peter. He could have came to Paul. He came to Mary. So she was an apostle to the apostles. But all we ever hear is that she was a prostitute. So you see that there's women of power that we don't talk about. And if we do, we get half the truth. And we just accept it. Mary Magdalene was also mentioned. There's a Greek word, and you might have to help me pronounce it. Let me see. Diakono. It's a Greek word that means minister.
Yeah, it is.
Diakono.
It's dial.
Diakono, okay. Mary Magdalene is mentioned with that word, so is Phoebe. That word also is mentioned to describe a lot of other men in the Bible, and we've translated that into minister, and people teach it as minister, but when they teach it about Mary Magdalene and they teach it about Phoebe, they say servant.
Yeah.
Because the word can mean minister, deaconess, and servant, or deacon. So only when we talk about women do we then take the lower.
That's right.
But when we talk about men, then they're ministers and deacons. So Mary Magdalene also was mentioned along with 7 other women in the Gospels, like I said, as a minister. And then she also was mentioned to be a part of that group that helped to finance Jesus' ministry.
That's right.
So Mary Magdalene, Peter's mother-in-law, Mary, mother of Jesus, Salome, mother of Zebedee's son, Joanna, wife of Chuza, Martha, sister of Mary and Lazarus, were the 7 women mentioned in the Gospels as being ministers and financing Jesus' ministry, and we never hear about it.
Come on. You teaching today.
So Mary Magdalene is a prostitute. No, Mary Magdalene is a minister who helped to finance Jesus' ministry. Traveled with him, saw him first, and was an apostle to the apostles.
Shift your perspective.
Hidden figure?
Yes. I think so.
If you want to find more about those 7 women, you can look in Luke 8, verse 3, just in case you guys wanted to take that down. So let's talk about Jesus and women.
Teach, babe.
How I know we're connected is before you introduce me, some of the things that you were speaking on are completely tied into what I'm talking about. And you started talking about redemption. Jesus is redemption.
That's right.
He is the redemption movement.
That's right.
Jesus literally came on the scene,
That's right.
talked about things that were mentioned in the Old Testament, and moved them forward, redeemed them. We hear about eye for an eye, and Jesus says, love those that persecute you. Love your enemies. He changed things. We're taught to be more like Jesus every day, and we don't identify how Jesus treated us. Did Jesus ever belittle us? No. He honored us. He loved us. He taught us. He spoke to us. And he spoke to us in front of other people when he wasn't supposed to.
That's good, babe.
And when he spoke to us in the midst of men, he never made us separate. He didn't speak to us like we were lesser. He wasn't speaking to us condescendingly. No. He spoke to us like equals. He gave us validation. He redeemed everything that we had been taught, that society had been taught about women. He removed it. His conversation with the woman at the well was said to have been the longest conversation documented in the Bible.
Talk, baby.
The longest conversation. And it is the first instance where he says, I am the Messiah.
Yeah.
Out of his mouth. He says it to a woman at a well that he is not supposed to talk to.
Teach, baby.
And he proclaims, I am the Messiah. She then goes on to minister.
Come on. Come on.
But we don't talk about her either.
Yeah.
The only thing we say is she just talked to her. He talked to her. Everybody was a whore. Or a mother. And it's okay to be a mother, but we do a lot more than just be whores and mothers. Yeah, we do more than that. So if Jesus validated us, why are you waiting for a man to?
Talk, baby. Talk that talk.
If Jesus validated us, why do I need to tell you that you're worth something?
Put your weight on it, baby.
If Jesus came to a woman and allowed her to be an apostle, why does someone have to tell you that you're an apostle? If Phoebe could deliver letters and be a missionary, why can't you?
Yes. Write that book. Yes.
If 7 women could finance a ministry,
Yes.
Come on,
why
baby.
can't we as women build a ministry and finance it for ourselves? I have a spiritual mentor, Pastor Jordan. She is in Chicago. She's one of my closest friends' mother. So I've known her for some years. She spent most of her time raising her kids. She has 5 children. She had started her bachelor's, didn't finish. She was a devout servant in the church. She knew that God was calling her to be a minister. Her pastor told her no. He would not allow her to talk. He wouldn't allow her to lead. He wouldn't allow her to do any of the things that she said God told her she was supposed to do. So Pastor Jordan said, I'm leaving the ministry, and I'm going to get my master's of divinity. She hadn't finished her bachelor's. She went to school in Chicago, and she said, I want to come get my master's. And they said, well, you don't have a bachelor's. And she said, I'm going here to get my master's. And they're like, well, okay, well, we'll take your stuff, but I mean, you got to have it's steps. You got to have a bachelor's, then you got to have a master's. She said, no, you're going to accept me with what I have. I'm going to get my master's. She spoke it, and she believed it. They called her and said, Miss Jordan, we're going to let you in the program. Wow. She does not have a bachelor's. She does not have a bachelor's. In her 60s, she got her master's of divinity. And now is a pastor in Chicago. She didn't allow what somebody told her to stop her from what God told her. She didn't allow what somebody told her she was supposed to be to stop her from believing what Jesus told her she was. Showed her she was.
Talk, baby.
She went to that school. She said, I'm going here. She claimed it, and she did it. And she opened her own church, and she's serving God's people. And she did it in her 60s. Somebody here needs to hear that.
That's right.
Because you think I'm not young enough?
That's right.
It's never too late.
That's right.
So Psalm 139, it goes on to talk about how we are fearfully and wonderfully made. It doesn't say he is fearfully and wonderfully made. It says we. That's you. That's me. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. So he's told us how he feels about us. He showed us how he feels about us. He's left us footprints, blueprints. So my question is, what are you waiting for? What more do you need? The Bible mentions that our gifts cannot be taken back. They're irrevocable. I think someone else in here needs to take it back. Because you think that your past determines your worth. Your past determines what you should be allowed to do. Who will listen to you. Who you can minister to. No. If Mary Magdalene can be exorcised of 7 demons, I'm pretty sure your demons we can handle.
Yeah.
So stop waiting. I want you guys to stand up for me. I challenge each of you to go deeper. I don't want you to just take the things that I've discussed today and what I taught you today and just accept all of them for your truth. I want you to go and now find other women and read more about these women that we've talked about and uncover their stories and find one that you can resonate with. Mary Magdalene is my girl. And my husband has to stop me sometimes because when people talk about her and they're like, yeah, she was a prostitute, I get mad. Like, no, she wasn't. She was not a prostitute. I know her personally. Don't talk about my girl like that. So each of you needs to find that connection with someone. You can get my shirt at herstorylives.com. Squaggles. I want you to say, Sister Soldier, I am ready for war. Sister Soldier, I am ready for war. Like you mean it. Sister Soldier, I am ready for war. Sister Soldier, I am ready for war. Sister Soldier, I am ready for war. You guys to remember that you existed then and you made it and you can make it now. Amen. You have everything that you need inside of you. Now it's time to go to war.